Claire Whitmore was the kind of girl who barely showed up in family photos. The quiet one who preferred books over parties, who said, "I'm fine," even when everything inside her was falling apart. She grew up surrounded by cornfields and broken promises in a forgotten town in southern Kentucky. Her grandmother, a retired English teacher, was all she had, and maybe all she ever needed. It was with her that Claire learned the most important language wasn't made of words, but of the gestures that remain after everyone else walks away. Claire carried the sweetness of innocence in her face and the strength of survival in her heart. She never dreamed of riches. She didn't crave fame or even a picture-perfect marriage. She just wanted to teach, to change the world through children, to be the difference in someone's life. But life, as always, had other plans. The kettle was whistling, but Claire didn't move. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she stared at the letters spread across the thin blanket. The words, "We will not be renewing your contract," screamed between the lines of polite formality. The small private school where she worked part-time could no longer afford her grant assistance. She took a deep breath, the cold air seeping in through poorly sealed windows. Her rented room had bare walls and makeshift shelves made from stacked boxes. Every item in that space felt borrowed, including her. At 25, Claire was tired. She'd been supporting her ailing grandmother in a rundown nursing home near Bowling Green, juggling bills with late-night worry. Her master's degree in special education, earned through immense sacrifice, now felt more like a debt than an achievement. She picked up her phone, the cracked screen lighting up the dark with notifications she didn't want to read. But one caught her eye. A known number. Voicemail. She pressed play. "Miss Whitmore, this is Meredith Shaw. I was referred by your former professor from grad school. I have a tutoring position available in Charleston, South Carolina. Private client. One child only. But it's a sensitive case. High compensation. I need someone gentle. If you're interested, please call back today." Claire blinked, stunned. Charleston? Private? Sensitive? She had nothing to lose. 20 minutes later, heart pounding and the kettle still on the stove, she had a bus ticket purchased and an address saved on the cracked screen. Her grandmother used to say, "When life doesn't offer you a road, make one with your own feet." Claire was about to make a new path, even if she had to walk it alone. The gate creaked open slowly as the bus rolled down the historic streets of Charleston and disappeared into the distance. Claire stood in front of the house, or rather, the mansion. Framed with white columns and endless windows, it looked like a cross between a museum and a prison. Beautiful but cold. Rich but empty. She adjusted her glasses, tied her hair into a messy bun, and stepped through the gate with a folded resume in her hands. Every footstep echoed on the clean stone path as if the ground itself was asking, "Are you sure?" The door opened to reveal a tall woman dressed in dark clothes, her expression unreadable. "Miss Whitmore? Follow me, please." Without another word, the woman led her through corridors that stretched on too long. The walls were lined with paintings of faraway places, without people, without color. When they reached the library, Claire saw the boy for the first time. Elias, sitting on the floor, surrounded by blocks and blank sheets of paper. Too small to look so sad. When he looked up, there was something in his eyes that made her forget the cold, the mansion, even the money. She recognized that look. It was the same one she saw in the mirror. "He doesn't speak," said a male voice behind her. Claire turned and saw Thomas Belmont. Impeccable. Reserved. As striking as a statue carved never to move. There was a weight in his eyes that pulled the air out of the room. He lost his mother 2 years ago. Since then, not a single word. "I'm tired of empty promises, Miss Whitmore. So tell me why I should hire you." Claire took a deep breath. "Because I know what silence feels like," she said. "And I know sometimes it only ends when someone chooses to stay. The first few days were quiet. Claire didn't expect words. She looked for signs. And they came in small ways, like a green block Elias moved from the shelf to the floor, always in the same corner of the room. Or his eyes, watching her from the side as she pretended not to notice. She chose not to push. She would sit on the carpet near him, open picture books, and read softly. Now and then she'd laugh a little too loudly when a character did something funny, hoping to catch a reaction. Nothing. But she kept going. I know you're in there, she thought. And I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. On the third day, he slid a piece of paper toward her. He folded it with focus, tiny creases, careful hands, like he was crafting a secret. It was a star. A messy one, but still a star. Do you like the sky? Claire whispered. Silence. The next day, she brought colored paper. She folded a red star. Then a blue one. She left them on the corner of the table. The next morning, there were 3. And then, one late afternoon, just as Claire finished reading a book about the universe, Elias stood up and, for the first time, touched her arm. Gently. Like a breeze. Then he pointed to the paper she was holding. Do you want to draw? She asked, hopeful. Elias simply picked up a crayon. Blue. He drew a constellation. What Claire didn't know then was that he wasn't just drawing stars. He was tracing the beginning of their connection. What hurt more, Claire couldn't tell, Elias's silence or Thomas's absence. He was rarely around during lessons. Most days he stayed locked in his office, his voice flat and distant on cold phone calls. When their paths crossed, which wasn't often, he would study her with a curious intensity, like he was trying to figure out who this calm-voiced woman was, the one with steady eyes who dared to step into his world. One evening, after Elias had fallen asleep, Claire went to the kitchen for some tea. The house was quiet, but she heard footsteps in the library. When she walked in, she found Thomas standing by the window, a glass of whiskey in hand. I thought you didn't like company, she said. He turned slightly. Moonlight filtered through the blinds, casting half his face in shadow. I don't, he replied curtly. But you keep showing up. Claire crossed her arms. Your son folded 6 stars today. He almost smiled. Don't you want to see? Thomas looked away. Every time I try to get close, it's like he shuts down even more. I failed him. No, you didn't, Claire said, stepping closer. You just froze. Sometimes pain freezes us from the inside. But even ice melts, if someone's close enough, long enough. He looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time, his eyes seemed to ask for help, even if his lips couldn't say it. She didn't say another word. She just touched his arm gently, the same way she had touched Elias. And left. But in that single gesture, the first crack in the ice had formed. Weeks passed, like slow-falling autumn leaves. And with each day, Elias bloomed a little more. Was he speaking yet? Not quite. But he smiled. He touched the paper stars. He drew beside Claire. And sometimes, at the end of a lesson, he'd rest his head in her lap, as if silence had learned how to hug. Thomas was showing up more now. One morning, Claire caught him watching from behind the slightly open door as she read to Elias. She saw him. He didn't pull away. He smiled. That night, it rained. Claire couldn't sleep and went downstairs to make tea. She found Thomas sitting on the couch. Tie loosened. His face looked tired, but in a more human way. I can't sleep when it rains, he said. Neither can Elias, she replied softly. His mother died in a storm, didn't she? Thomas nodded slowly. I was driving. A truck swerved into our lane. It was dark. She died instantly. He saw everything. Claire sat beside him. For a long moment, there were no questions. No answers. Just presence. Have you ever cried for her? She asked. He looked at her, as if that question was more intimate than any touch. No. I had to take care of the company, the funeral, Elias, but I never cried. She reached out, took her hand, like a man gripping what remained of himself. You can cry now, she whispered. And he did. He cried like someone finally collapsing after an earthquake. Claire stayed. She didn't speak. She just held on. Winter gave way to spring, and the mansion, once made of silence and shadows, began to breathe again. The change wasn't sudden or loud. It came in quiet waves, in lingering glances, in warm morning light that hinted at hope, in afternoons where soft laughter slowly replaced the ticking of the old wall clock in the living room. Elias, the little boy who once hid beneath tables and flinched from every touch, now walked the halls with steadier steps. He still wasn't speaking, but he spoke with his eyes, with his movements, with the way he remained close to Claire like she was the anchor that kept him safe. In the early days, he'd just sit near her, never meeting her gaze. Then he started gently removing books from her lap and putting them back on the shelf in silence, a ritual she came to understand as his way of saying, "Stay a little longer." He was made of routines and silence, and Claire learned to read them like a new language. Thomas watched from a distance, sometimes from the staircase, sometimes from the office window. He saw Elias open up little by little, like a shy flower finally meeting the right sunlight. And Claire was that light. That much was clear. Her presence made the house less cold, less heavy. She spoke to Elias even when he didn't respond. She told him stories, drew pictures beside him, or simply sat quietly nearby, reading aloud without expecting anything in return. Until one evening, just as the sky turned golden with the setting sun, Elias approached with a crumpled paper in hand. On it, a crooked star drawn in crayon. He didn't say a word. He just offered it to her. Claire smiled and gently touched his hand. "Thank you, Elias. It's beautiful. Can I hang it on the wall?" He nodded. Days later, more stars began to appear. Each one with firmer lines, a little more spark in his eyes. Every sketch felt like a step forward, like he was building the courage to set something free inside himself. Then came the day everything changed. It was a bright Saturday morning. Claire was in the kitchen making pancakes, just as she did every weekend since she'd arrived. Soft music played on the radio. Elias appeared, dragging the same blanket he clutched every morning, his hair tousled from sleep. He climbed onto the tall chair beside the counter. She smiled at the sight of him. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" And then it happened. So, barely above a whisper, but clear as daylight. "Claire." She froze. The ladle hovered midair. Her eyes widened. "What?" she whispered, like she had just heard something impossible. Elias looked straight into her eyes. There was hesitation, but something new too. Trust. Strength. Don't go. The words, though simple, landed like thunder made of light. Claire dropped everything, knelt in front of him, her eyes wet, hands trembling. She hugged him carefully, respecting his boundaries, but unable to hold back her tears. "I'm not going anywhere, Elias. I'll never leave you." From the hallway, Thomas stood still. He had seen it all. And in that moment, he knew. He knew that this woman had done the impossible. She'd reached a heart that had been sealed shut. Two hearts, actually, his son's and his own. From that day forward, the words began to come, one by one. At first, scattered. Tree. Cake. Book. Then short phrases, "I like that. I'm not sleepy yet. Is she coming tomorrow?" And always, in moments of doubt, one word returned with renewed strength. Claire. The bond between her and Thomas was changing too, though slowly. He began inviting her to dinner, talking more, even smiling, for real. Some nights, the three of them sat on the porch, stargazing. Elias would sit between them, grab their hands, and place them together, wearing a goofy grin. They laughed. And they let him. Claire was never in a rush. She knew broken hearts don't heal with grand gestures or big speeches. They mend with presence, with patience, with quiet moments shared in silence. And it was on one of those quiet nights, under a blanket of stars, that Thomas said, "You taught us how to love again. I want to love you forever." Claire didn't answer with words. She simply smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. Elias picked up a piece of paper, drew a star, and, his handwriting wobbly but determined, wrote a single word, "Yes." Months later, at the wedding, Elias was the one who carried the rings. His little navy blue suit barely let him walk straight. His shoes kept slipping off. But he made it to them, holding a small pillow with the wedding bands. And before handing them over, he looked into their eyes and said, "Now we're a constellation. Together." Thomas fought back a laugh, overwhelmed. Claire wept openly, without shame. And when they kissed, it felt like the sky lit up just for them. Time passed, and the mansion that once echoed with loneliness and longing was now filled with the sound of tiny footsteps, the smell of cake baking in the oven, drawings taped to the walls, and afternoons filled with books read aloud. Sometimes, Claire would sit alone in the library to write. In an old notebook, she scribbled down stories, reflections, memories. On one page, she wrote, "Love doesn't always arrive with flowers or promises. Sometimes, it enters quietly, in the silence of a boy who doesn't speak, and in the distant gaze of a man who forgot how to feel. But when it finds space, it blooms. Even in the coldest houses. Even in the most guarded hearts." If this story touched your heart, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Who knows? Maybe your name will show up in the next story. Here, even the loneliest souls get a chance to find their place.